You look at Murray, you look at Emmanuel Karnley, the cornerback from Arizona, who just jumped in the portal. He came in. Miami knew they needed numbers at the position. They threw a lot of numbers at the position. Xavier Lucas, you already have Frederic, Ethan O'Connor from Washington State, Charles Brantley, Damari Brown coming back. Karnley just found himself on the outside of that battle and decided to jump back in the portal, kind of like Terry Roberts from Iowa a couple of years ago. Come in, compete, fall behind, out the door. Modern college football, baby. It's put up or shut up.
Yeah, and I like that take when you take him because of the upside, right? And obviously, it's not that it hasn't worked out. He just, because you can't say something hasn't worked out when you haven't even really seen him out there. But there's guys who are ahead of him right now. So unlikely he was going to play much. Was intrigued by the skill set, but I don't know if he was ready to be that guy this year.
Yeah, I've seen some people, frustrated in the comments. They're saying things like, he didn't even compete. He got salty and dipped. Miami knew this was going to happen. They brought in more than they needed at corner, right? These were guys that they had to fight for. These were highly recruited guys. In Karnley's case, Ole Miss was after Michigan. So it's not like, he just was extra. But you knew that one of these guys was going to fall behind the others. So let him battle it out. That person, whoever it is, can leave, save money, and you had at least had a true competition. I think that's what you saw here. Lucas looks like a first-round corner. Frederic was a freshman All-America last year. Ethan O'Connor, whom I beat out Georgia for, was higher ranked than Karnley and just was a better performer. And then Brantley, I think, is more of an inside corner. What really hurt Karnley was the return of Damari Brown outside, who was just outstanding when he came back. I was surprised by how good he was right away. After missing, half a spring, missing the bowl game, missing most of the season, he came back, didn't miss a beat, was outstanding, and looks like he's going to be a fixture of this cornerback room. Look, the portal's still open. You hope you don't lose any more guys. I think this is the one. You can't predict certain things. This is the one. If you would have asked me, I would have said Karnley's likely the odd man out based on his spring performance. So no surprise internally, but portal's still open. You hope you can hold it together because you got a great room right now.
Yeah, I was going to say it's. I think it could be considered a strength of the team right now, as crazy as it sounds off of the end of last season and for most of last season, but you gotta keep these guys, right? There's still the potential for guys to leave. So not signaling that we know anything necessarily. I'm just saying, like, you can afford one of these losses. I don't think you can afford another one without having to go back into the transfer portal. I think if everything stands how it is right now, I don't see them going and getting another corner. Obviously, safety we'll talk about here in a second, and that's a position that we expect them to do work in. But corner, I think if no one else leaves, you feel very good about that position.
And this kind of like NFL, sometimes you sign players, they don't make the team, right? So it's not ideal, but this is just part of the process with college football free agency, which is what it is. I think the good news is Xavier Lucas, who was the highest ranked of these players, the highest compensated of these players, I believe, he looks like what you expected. I mean, he legitimately looks like a first-round pick. I'd put it with Mawanoa, guys of that caliber, as you feel good about this guy being an NFL player and a high-round NFL player. We saw Frederic last year. He hasn't played in spring because he was banged up, but, we saw enough in the season, and you saw what he did in the bowl game. O'Connor, the reason Karnley didn't work out, I think he was tall. He had some movement ability, but I think the quicker guys gave him trouble, which you thought might be the case based on some of the things that happened to him, but you hope that he'd be able to use his length and kind of adjust. That didn't really happen to the level that like a Damari Brown was able to use his size to his advantage. And I think that was really the difference. Really, when Damari came back, you knew Karnley was probably on the way out. You weren't sure what was happening with Damari. You didn't have him the whole season. And then in the bowl, he was out too. First half of spring, he was out. But he really looked good at corner. Maybe he moves to nickel, maybe he moves to safety. Who knows? Who knows where all these guys end up? But I think your best corners are still in the building after this move.